Therewith bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost.
Amen.
As kingfishers catch fire, dragonflies draw flame, as tumbled over rim in roundy wells stones ring. Like each tucked string tells, each hung bell's bow, swung, finds tongue to fling out broad its name. Each mortal thing does one thing and the same, deals out that being indoors each one dwells. Selves goes itself, myself it speaks and spells, crying, what I do is me, for that I came. That is the first stanza of the poem As Kingfishers Catch Fire by the Jesuit poet Gerard Manley Hopkins. It has always been one of my favourite poems, and I often return to it. Hopkins has his own unique poetic style, with a rhythm that is very much his own. More than that, he has his own way of talking about who we are, about our individuality and our actions, our interior life, and our behaviour towards the rest of the world. This poem, I think, exemplifies that. Each thing that Hopkins mentions has its own interior self, and what it does in the world expresses that interior self. Kingfishers catch fire, dragonflies flash in the sun, stones ring when tossed into a well, strings and bells give out a note which tells what it is and who it is. Each mortal thing does one thing and the same. What is inside us, indoors, in Hopkins' language, is proclaimed by our actions. We selve in his invented word. We express our selfness, our uniqueness, our individuality, who we are, in what we say and do. There is not a contradiction between who we are and what we do, what we say. Or rather, there ought not to be such a contradiction, which brings me to the readings we have this morning. I am going to pass over the Gospel for the simple reason that it was also the Gospel on the second Sunday of Lent, and I preached on it then. But I am pleased that this quite extraordinary passage from the Epistle of St. James is also given to us this morning. The Epistle is perhaps one of the less known parts of the New Testament, but to my mind, one of the more fascinating. St. James writes about the complexities of being a follower of Christ in a complex world, of living in the community of the church. It is wisdom literature in the great tradition of the Jewish scriptures. He asks constantly, who am I and how ought I to live? St. James is writing in particular here about the dangers of speech and in particular of teaching. The word masters in the first line of the reading this morning has the meaning of teachers rather than being to do with slavery. We shall receive the greater condemnation, he says, including himself among the teachers, because in many things we offend all. That is, we all fail often. Each of us stumbles and falls. He is writing of precisely what ought not to be so when we think back to Hopkins. A clash, a tension, a division between who we claim to be and then what we do and say, when we do not deal out that which dwells inside us. In particular, St. James says, our words let us down. If anyone does not fail in speech, this person is perfect, able to hold the whole body in check with a bridle. There is that idea of wholeness, where speech and body and inner self are in a perfect harmony, fully in check. And of these, he says, the tongue is the most dangerous part. Though small, it is a bridle which that can restrain the horse and then turn its whole body. It is the rudder which, though small, can turn a great ship. A little fire can kindle a far greater one. Similarly, the tongue, our speech, can stain, defile, ruin our whole person. In chapter 1 of his epistle, St. James said that the task of religion is to keep oneself unstained by the world. Here, he says, through the tongue, the stain has entered in. And he ends this passage with the problem of hypocrisy, of being divided in our actions. With the same tongue, we bless God and curse our fellow human beings, made in God's likeness. These things, he says, ought not to be so. It is not natural, just as it is not natural for saltwater to bring for a saltwater spring to bring forth sweet water. We are to be whole and undivided, perfect, St. James tells us. And perhaps we can start with how we speak. It is, of course, more than a little simplistic to say that Christianity should mean no more than kindness, but kindness is perhaps not a bad place to start. Within the Church, and yes, perhaps particularly among Anglo-Catholics, it can be easy to be unnecessarily cruel about those with whom we disagree, to speak with a sharp tongue rather than with a gentle one. It is not the end of Christian ethics to see our fellow humans as made in the similitude of God, but it is an essential place to start. It is vital, life-giving, for us to tame the easy harshness of our speech about other people and indeed about ourselves. The way we speak transforms the way we think, and it transforms the way we act. I do not want to suggest that Christianity requires some form of political correctness, but it does require us to be careful in our speech, perhaps even to be kinder than is necessary, to be gentle. It builds us up, and it builds up our community as well. If we are hypocrites, if we profess a faith in Jesus Christ, but speak about others as if he had not died for them, our conversion is incomplete. We are a salty stream, claiming that our water is sweet. We cannot then be divided. We must not be hypocrites. We are called to be our whole, perfect selves, to tell out inside what we are indoors, to let our interior life and our exterior life be of one accord, to let both our inner selves and our outer selves show forth our true nature, the nature given to us from above, the nature that is Christ's. I say more, the just man justices, keeps grace that keeps all his goings graces, acts in God's eye what in God's eye he is, Christ. For Christ plays in 10,000 places, lovely in limbs and lovely in eyes not his, to the Father, through the features of men's faces. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.